I heard you guys were a little rowdy, so I brought my own bodyguard, but we're ignoring him. He's incognito. He is working as my media person today. So, without further ado, I am Jennifer. I have been a volunteer with the Alzheimer's Association since January of 2019. I do legislative advocacy. I have facilitated support group, and then I also do this, which is community education. So I was really excited when my staff partner called and said, "Don't you live in Lake of the Pines? We have a request from a group from Lake of the Pines." I'm like, when is it I'm there? So thank you for whoever called to learn more about this topic. So before I get started, how many people are either concerned about their own brain or are dealing with somebody who you're worried about? That's a lot of hands. That doesn't surprise me, unfortunately. So I'm here today. This isn't, hello. You pooped out on me. Let's do the off on.
Are we green?
No, it stopped working. We've had nothing but technical issues today. It's because I'm a Mac person. Everything's hating me today. Okay, where was I? Yes, so this is a special program created just for you guys. So we're going to talk about what is Alzheimer's, what is the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia. We're going to talk about risk factors and warning signs, and then what you might be able to do. So, how many people think memory loss, forgetting things like what you had for breakfast, what the heck you're doing here this afternoon, how many think that's a normal part of aging? Oh, good. I get to teach you guys a few things today. So Alzheimer's is not normal aging. We do have brain slowing down as we age. That is normal. The brain does shrink a little bit, which is kind of surprising. I like to describe it as, some of us might have old computers. They fire up, they get our emails, they do all the things we kind of need them to do. Might be a little slow compared to the new computer, but it does what we need, right? Might not handle new software very well. The communication between the neurons in our brains also doesn't work as well as we age. That's all normal. Forgetting what you're doing here this afternoon, what you did this morning, that's not normal aging. Fortunately, as we age, the brain does have ways of, compensating and making changes so that we can continue doing all the things we want to do. So, make sure. There are over 100 types of dementia. How many people knew that? Anybody can list them all? Yeah, me neither. So one of the most common is Alzheimer's disease. Vascular dementia is generally caused from strokes and loss of blood flow to the brain. We have Lewy body, frontal temporal dementia, and there's diseases that also cause dementia, like Parkinson's disease and Huntington's disease. That's just to name a few. And if you're really lucky, you might end up with mixed dementias, which is obviously more than one. So what are our risk factors? This is the slide. Yes, that's the slide that always gets me because it moves. There we go. So age is our greatest risk factor for Alzheimer's disease. So if you're like me, my paternal grandmother lived to 103. That is my goal. That gives me, I think it's 46 years next month left to go. So obviously I'm going to just keep upping my risk of Alzheimer's disease, which is not a very fun thing to think about. Family history is also a risk factor. As I mentioned, my mom had Alzheimer's, my grandmother had vascular, my great-grandmother had some form of dementia. I don't think they knew what dementia was back in those days. And then there are genes that up your risk as well. There are two, I always get this wrong, deterministic genes. Now, it does up your risk significantly if you've got both. It ups your risk somewhat if you have one. Fortunately, there are definitely things we can do to lessen our risks. So this next slide is who is at a higher risk? I think we might be kind of lucky in this room. So if you are Black, African American, you are at least 2 times more likely to get Alzheimer's disease than white people. I have a friend in Chicago who's a neuropsychologist who also is Black, and he thinks it's more like 5 times. So Alzheimer's disease, in my humble opinion, is still underreported, so I kind of lean towards thinking that he's probably correct. Now, if you're Asian American, no, excuse me, I'm looking at the picture and still getting it wrong. Hispanics have 1.5 times the risk of developing the disease. And there's a whole lot of reasons for that, but that's a whole other program. So that's the one good thing, at least if you're male and you're, oh, I missed a step. 2/3 of Americans living with Alzheimer's are women. So how many risk factors do I have? Female, family history. I have people that ask me, are you going to get tested to see if you have the genes? The answer is no. I already do all of the things I can do to reduce my risk of dementia and Alzheimer's. So since I have a tendency to lean a little negative sometimes, I figure I'll just keep going on with the positive. Every day I do brain health things, and that's good enough. So, yes, we did move. So I'm going to give you guys a little quiz. I hope you were paying attention. What is the biggest risk factor for Alzheimer's disease? Yay, everybody gets a gold star. More dessert for these guys. That's my priority, is dessert. So yes, as we discussed, age is the biggest risk factor for Alzheimer's disease. So what, oh, I think I asked that question wrong. You already got this question right, so we'll just keep going on. Greatest risk factor is age. Oh, the first question was, is Alzheimer's a normal part of aging? We already know that that's not the case. So you guys, extra desserts all around. So, does somebody want to share a quick concern that they have? Like, is a loved one doing something, they're like, I don't like this, I'm not sure that this is a good one. Like a warning sign, does anybody have one they can throw out real quick? No? Okay, fine. I will tell you all the 10 warning signs that the Alzheimer's Association has come up with. The first one is memory loss that affects daily living. So being unable to like just navigate daily life, and that might sound like it shouldn't be that hard, but when you stop and think about all the different things you do every day, it's actually a lot of steps, and it's, unless you're just sitting around doing nothing, it's a lot. There's a lot of stuff we do every day. I don't have my glasses on. Oh, so the next one is planning. Challenges in planning or solving problems. This one frequently shows up. I've heard a lot of you guys are planning trips. Maybe there's one person in your group or your family that does most of the logistics, planning, you know, what airport, what you're going to see, what you're going to do, and all of a sudden they start screwing that up, or they don't want to do it anymore. That might be a warning sign, especially if it's kind of sudden. Problem solving is pretty self-explanatory. So difficulty completing familiar tasks. That one's pretty obvious as well. I just like to tell the little story. My family had a 1-hour photo lab, if you guys remember back in those days, with a portrait studio. And at the end of my mom's work week, she would frequently, more often, start not writing down due dates and directions on people's orders. That was really fun when they showed up the next day when she was gone, and we'd be like, sorry, your order's not done. Oopsies, let me go do it. And that happened more and more frequently until one day she didn't recognize her handwriting on an order that she had taken. So that was absolutely not a great day. Oh, my battery is going down. I told you the battery wasn't going to last long enough. So we have confusion with time or place. That's pretty obvious. Another quick story, the incognito dude over there with the camera phone. We went to Toronto. We got stuck in Denver for 6 hours. So after about 13, 14 hours of travel, woke up the next morning. It was like, where the heck am I? What time? Oh my God. Like just a half a second of panic before my brain woke up enough for me to like, oh yes, now I remember where I'm at. You cannot imagine what that is like, living with that every day. So, trouble understanding visual images and spatial relationships. Anybody got a family member that came home with dings on their car and they're like, I don't know what happened? That is likely. Did they really say they didn't know what happened? Or they blame somebody else? That's a spatial imaging problem. Obviously the brain affects how we process vision. So, you know, those yellow poles don't necessarily look like they belong there. And those signs with the arrows going right and left, I don't know how many people know that those drunks get confused with those signs and go straight. And if you think about an arrow going in each direction, it is a little confusing, and straight actually does kind of make sense. So we have to keep on time or the battery's going to die. So new problems with words in speaking or writing. This generally shows up with somebody saying, it's right there on the top of my head. You know that word, and they're doing this, and you're like, ugh, stop that. And sometimes their handwriting will change. I know my father-in-law, who was an engineer, those engineer types, not my type of being like an artist, would start sending emails with no capitalization and no punctuation. That doesn't sound like an engineer to me. My dad was also an engineer. Oh, my favorite, misplacing things and being unable to retrace your steps to find them. Anybody have a loved one accuse you of moving their stuff? You moved my glasses. Where did you put where are my keys? Why did you move my keys? Yeah, how many people have misplaced something and thought, oh my God, is this it? Am I getting dementia? Oh, I see hands kind of going. Okay, good news. Most of the time when you misplace something, it's because you weren't paying attention. Or if you walk into another room and you're like, the heck did I come in here for? And then you leave the room and you're like, oh yeah, that's right. And you go back in the room and like, oh yeah, okay. It's because you weren't paying attention. 99% of the time, that's the case. If you're having a cognitive impairment, some sort of dementia, you may put your things down in a logical place and forget where you put them. And of course, you didn't forget where you put them. Somebody moved them. And this can actually escalate into a really difficult challenge with dealing with Alzheimer's, is being accused of stealing. If you can't find your stuff all the time, somebody's got to be moving it, right? So that's another warning sign. Let's see. Decreased or poor judgment, that one's pretty self-explanatory. If we're not quite in our right mind, we might say things that are threatening that we would never say before. Or we got a political election coming up. We might spew some thoughts that maybe most of the time we'd kind of keep quiet. That one's pretty self-explanatory. Withdrawal from work or social activities. So you got a pretty big group in here. Do you have anybody that kind of all of a sudden just stopped coming for no necessary reason? No? That's good. Because what happens as our brain starts having more and more issues with processing what's the input, like our computers, it gets really difficult to understand people in a noisy environment. It takes longer for your brain to process. Your slow computer it's working, but it's slow, and conversations are going, and it's just too much. I like smaller groups. This group's not too bad. Groups 300-400 people, I'm out. I don't like those. But if I liked big groups, and I all of a sudden started being like, I don't really want to go to the Firebells Christmas party or whatever, that would be something to kind of pay attention to. And one of the things I forgot to mention, now that we're up to the 9th warning sign, is if you're seeing these kind of signs in a loved one, start taking notes. Keep a little journal, notebook, write down date, time, what's going on, maybe a little notation of why you think it's weird. It is very challenging to get a diagnosis, which we're going to talk about in a second, because obviously doctors get to see us for 5, 10, maybe 15 minutes, and your loved one is going to be absolutely perfect for them. And the doctor's going to be looking at you going, maybe it's you that has the problem. It's very common, and it's super frustrating. So take notes, make videos if their gait's changing, the way they walk. I know I've interviewed, there's a group called All's Authors. It's a website. It's all on books, blogs, etc. for Alzheimer's, obviously. I've talked to, I think, 5 of the 6 they're women, so I call them the founding mothers. One of them wrote a book based on her journaling that she was keeping for her sister who lived over 1,000 miles away. Just for fun knowledge, both her parents were diagnosed with Alzheimer's on the same day. So, keeping a notebook's not a bad idea. So the last one is changes in mood and personality. I think that one's pretty obvious. We all have our off days, but if we're starting to have more off days, it might be time to write that down, take notes. So, it is possible for people to experience one or more of these in varying stages. My mom had problems completing things properly, as I mentioned. She didn't really have mood changes, but she didn't really have driving problems, which is kind of surprising. It is not necessary for you to have all 10 of these warning signs to be diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. So I don't think you got to hit the lottery that way. And if you want, well, like I said, if you notice that your loved one or somebody, friend, neighbor, is showing some of these signs, you know, keep notes, and then, you know, help them get to the doctor to get a diagnosis. That is almost as difficult as getting the diagnosis. And if you have more questions, you can visit the Alzheimer's Association website, which is alz.org. And if you go /10 signs, right? Yes, I did remember that correctly. You can learn more about all of this. Now, the importance of early detection. Don't be like my mom. She knew she was having an issue, and she was real good at avoiding going to the doctor. Even though my grandmother showed signs, there was one day, the day that she didn't recognize her handwriting on the order, she said, well, I don't want to end up like my mother. Stomped out of the room. Not very beneficial. The Alzheimer's Association has been working with pharmaceutical companies and doctors, et cetera, all those people that we try to avoid, to help find a cure, to help fund a cure, a treatment, a prevention, anything. We've been dealing with this disease for at least 100 years. It was discovered over 100 years ago. The Alzheimer's Association really is thrilled to be able to say, we are in the era of treatments now. So there are drugs, and you may have heard of them. There's 3, but I think they're only using 2, that are designed for people in the very early stages of the disease. It is designed to clear the plaques and tangles from your brain, which slows down the progression. Fortunately, we don't know how much it slows it down, how long it lasts. It's an infusion. Once you do the round of infusions to clear the stuff out of your brain, and once you start declining again, you can go back on the drug for a short period of time. It's something. With that, I'm sorry?
What do they call it?
The first one was, this is what happens when you volunteer for the Alzheimer's Association. You learn words like aducanumab, which I don't think they use as much because the following drugs have been better. The second one is lecanemab. Street name is Leqembi. And any drug that ends in MAUB is a monoclonal antibody. Yay, I'm an artist. I didn't need to know this stuff. The newest one that was just approved by the FDA in July of this year is called donanemab, and the street name for that one is Kinsla. I don't know where they got that one. That one is actually, each one has gotten better in 2 years, so who knows where we'll be 5 years from now. However, the disease can be fast progressing or slow progressing, so the best reason for getting an early diagnosis is so you can make plans. You can talk to your loved ones, friends, family, neighbors, whatever. I always suggest that people talk about what their fears are, because trust me, there's plenty of those. You know, listen to your spouse's fears. How do you want to be taken care of? How do you want to live the last part of your life? If you're like me, my mom always said, I don't want to be a burden to you, but I'm going to live in my home forever. Yeah, those were mutually exclusive. So I had to make the tough decision to move her to memory care, knowing that's not what she wanted. It was the best thing for her. She had friends and activities and stuff she would not have had if she'd lived with me. If she'd lived with me, we would have been fighting all the time, so that would have been bad. So it would have just been nice if we could have had the conversation, if you become a burden, or if you cannot live in your home, what's the next step? What do you see? It just makes everything so much easier. I've talked to caregivers who, one in particular that pops into my mind, married her husband after his diagnosis of Parkinson's disease. I still think she's crazy. They had these conversations, her fears, his fears, how he wanted to be cared for, what she thought she could do. They talked it all through, and it was pretty smooth sailing considering Parkinson's is just about as ugly as Alzheimer's disease. You can make financial plans because none of us have done enough of that, especially in the face of this disease. And, you know, you can start checking off that bucket list. So it's really important to know what's going on, even though if you get a diagnosis of Alzheimer's, that's not anything any of us actually want. So thank you for plugging in the computer, but I think we made it. Like I said, I think I told a lot of you, this program was created specifically for you guys because it's normally a lot longer. I live here in the community, so if you contact Lieutenant Fink over there, you can, or you can find me at the dog park most afternoons with our dog. I'm always open to answering questions, but if you would rather, you can also talk to the Alzheimer's Association. They have a 24/7 hotline number. It's 1-800-272-3900. There's somebody there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And just one more little story. Mr. Fink over there also does property management, and he had a question regarding property management and a tenant that had some cognitive issues. He called them. They went, what? But they did call him back with an answer. So they are a very good resource. The website has tons of information, tons of training. There's online training. I do a whole bunch of these kind of programs. I do them online and in person. In person's a little bit more fun. And then this is the one resource I forget about a lot, is alz.org/CRF. It stands for Community Resources, and I forgot the F, but it's in conjunction with AARP, so you can go on there, go to that page, and find out like what are the resources around here. We're kind of blessed because this is a pretty tight-knit community, and we have the opportunity to, we've got groups like this, and we take care of our neighbors, but it's also helpful to know what other things are out there. So, anybody got questions? Go ahead.
So, can you just go to your general practitioner and just ask them, to check if you have any of the symptoms you believe you might have?
Yes, well, you have to start there. And there is a blood test, and I don't know how widely used it is. I keep hearing about this blood test for years. All the blood tests coming, it's here. They're working to get the blood test like more widely used, because obviously a blood test is much more simple than performing an MRI, which is the way you get diagnosed right now, or lumbar puncture, spinal tap. Those are not things general physicians do. So the blood test is something a general physician could do, and I think the efficacy, I think it's really high, like 92 or 93%. It's not too many false reports. But you do have to start with your general physician, and there's a lot of symptoms of lots of forms of dementia that can present as depression, anxiety, adult onset ADHD, and so they might, because general physicians get 4 hours of dementia training in all 8 years of school. So I know more about dementia and Alzheimer's than our general physician. I can say that pretty confidently. Fortunately, he's new to us, and he's kind of eager to learn from me. So let's hope that he maintains that eagerness. You want to go to you don't want them going down the mental health path. You want them to send you to a neurologist, because the neurologist will become part of your care team if that is actually a diagnosis you get. I'm sure you guys have more questions. Oh, you got another one.
Earlier you made a comment that you're doing something to prevent you from getting...
Oh yes, lifestyle choices. So this is kind of a funny, like I said, the Alzheimer's Association says, yay, we're in the era of treatments. I mean, it's like a big deal, right? It is a big deal. And then they literally pivoted to, and all these lifestyle choices are really, really important. It's like, but we have drugs now, right? I mean, we know we like to go to the doctor and get fixed quickly. So lifestyle choices. You guys have never heard of any of these. We want to eat right. We want to get plenty of good quality sleep. We want to exercise so that we get the blood circulating. We got to get those neurons talking to each other a little bit better. We need to manage stress. Anybody ever heard of any of those little lifestyle things we should be doing all the time? I always like to tell people, the things that we're always supposed to do. So yeah, I do those every day. I belong to the cult of Peloton, and I get really weird if I don't do my workouts, which 15 years ago was the opposite. So I also started eating a lot more vegetarian. I know that's not usually a popular topic in a group of all men. But they do suggest that you eat 30 different kinds of plants a week. I know that's a lot. But that includes everything. So big variety. Who else has questions?
Alcohol, cannabis use, any effect on onset of Alzheimer's?
There is alcohol-induced dementia, and it's not a popular opinion, but it's not an incorrect opinion that the older we get, the worse alcohol is for our brain. And see, I say that because all I drink is tea and water, but that's part of the reason that I don't drink. Part of it's I don't drink calories. Like I don't drink milkshakes, and those are good. So, but yeah, that is one. It's that one's confusing. Microdosed cannabis can have a lot of benefits, but it's you can't just go to the dispensary and get some gummies or get the loose stuff and just smoke it, because it affects your brain as well. Anything that affects your brain, changes the brain even temporarily, not necessarily good. That includes anesthesia.
Couldn't it be part of the plant, so
Yes, actually you're totally correct. But it has to be microdosed, and it's almost like pharmaceutical, like they don't just give you. There's online places. There's the Canna Nurse, so CANNA Nurse. That's what they do. They're in Southern California, and they help people microdose cannabis and I think psychedelics. So yeah, so I keep reading about that because there's a whole group of people that are like, yes, this helps, and other people are like, no, bad. So well, I'm still watching, like what's going to be the end result. But I think recreational use not so great, but medicinal use might be beneficial. So, but yeah, you can add that to your plant list if you want, I guess. Go ahead. You had a lot of questions.
I was diagnosed about 5 years ago with dementia, and so of course I'm worried about the hereditary thing. They told him it was because he had a couple concussions, and that's what caused for him.
Could be. Did he have them sort of close together?
No.
Interesting.
Lifetime. They said anything over 2 concussions can lead to.
Ooh, I've had 2. Add to my risk factor. Great. One of them was in '96 and one of them was in 2016. So hopefully. The second one, they said I didn't have a concussion. I flew off my bike and knocked myself out cold. So I've had people say, yeah, that was a concussion. Go ahead.
I'd like to talk about myself.
Sure. It's better than me talking about myself.
For your benefit, these guys know me. I'm 90 years old. Okay. My hearing is now poorer than it used to be, so I miss on conversation. My eyes are questionable, and my ability to read small print is challenging. I do exercises called adult exercises. I personally forget things, and I go out there to do that, and then I use swear words because I gotta go back and get the damn thing that was right there to go out there so I can go do what I was gonna do. Then by that time, I might have forgotten what I was gonna do. When you put all those together, I can tell you that my high school graduation class is about 10% left. My friends are gone. My network that I had precious is dwindling big time. And I believe that is something that is happening to every one of us in this group.
Staying social.
What the hell do you do about it? Die.
Well, not all of us are quite ready for that. I did miss staying social, and staying socially engaged is also another important part of the lifestyle choices.
Ron does a really good job at that.
Okay, he must. But I gotta ask, so Ron, do you have hearing aids?
Yes.
Okay. The reason I ask is because hearing loss can aggravate issues that lead you towards dementia.
Yes.
See, he agrees with me. Because if you can't hear somebody very well, eventually you're going to be like, I just don't know what the heck she's saying. I'm out.
What did you say?
Yeah. You know, it removes you from the, you know, socially engaged. And, you know, it's, you know, and he said he has a hard time reading small print. I don't blame, I can't read small print either, and I'm not 90, so I don't know what's going to happen by the time I'm 90. Using adaptive stuff is smart. So do we have other questions? Over there in the, I think that's a red hat. You guys are all backlit, so all bunch of shadows. Go ahead.
There's a recent article in ARC, which is very interesting because my wife has jumped on me about it because I quit wearing my hearing aid. The article says if you had hearing aids, to wear it because it affects the back of your brain, and to not put your hearing aids in your drawer.
Right.
It's really harder to hear it in the drawer.
Yeah.
That's why I put it in there.
If she jumped on you about it, there's a reason. Yeah, well, if you want to protect your brain, put those back on.
Yeah, after ARC said.
Who else has questions? Are we done? I'm always around if you guys have more questions. Thank you so much.